Okay, so there was an issue this past weekend. I think it's only been over the last 2 or 3 days, where this person, Shine Comics, which by the way, I only know him because he's been on a couple of streams that I've watched. But Eric has seemed to like take a liking to this guy because he's a Ripaverse shill, and I don't throw that word around lightly. Like when someone shills, there's a couple of people that are Ripaverse shills where they essentially just hype up everything that comes out from the Ripaverse. You can like what you want to like. I think that's fair. But when you have these people that are just willing to wipe away any criticism at all and just go, oh, well, you're just hating on it for no reason whatsoever, it kind of puts you in like shill territory when there's no real argument there about what's being said. But he's been on streams. I think he was on streams with Ethan Van Sciver. He's been on streams with a couple other smaller channels. So he put this out, and I saw it. I bookmarked it because I did want to follow up on it. And it's kind of spiraled out of control since I bookmarked it. And Shine says, YouTuber Comics Explained says he refuses to cover anything Ripaverse related. I'm not going to cover the Ripaverse. That's not going to happen. Why do you think that is? And I thought there's a clip attached here, right here. I thought this was going to be some big declaration. Like Rob said something awful about Eric July, or, you know, talk shit about the Ripaverse or something like that. I thought it was going to be a lot more meaty. I was really excited. I was like, oh shit, what did he say? Like, I wanted to know. Because again, like I said earlier, I'm not the biggest fan of Rob Comics Explained anymore. I don't watch his channel anymore. I know that he had drama with Blurred Without Fear, calling him out about some of the bad behavior he was doing on social media. I know that much. But essentially, Rob doesn't really get involved in drama. It's not the normal thing he does. And so when I saw this, I was like, 6 seconds? What could he have possibly said about Eric July in 6 seconds that warrants a social media post like this? What did he say? What did he do? So we're going to watch the clip, and then we're going to see what the reaction to this clip was.
Person came along and they were, no, I'm not going to cover Ripaverse. That's not going to happen. Person came along and they were, no, I'm not going to cover Ripaverse. That's not
one more time.
Person came along and they were, no, I'm not going to cover Ripaverse. That's not going to happen.
That's it. That's all he said. I'm not going to cover the Ripaverse. That's not going to happen. No additional comments about it. Nothing. That was the original clip from a random live stream where he says something about, and this is the crazy thing to me is, how the fuck did you find this? Were you digging through hours and hours and hours of a live stream to find this? Legitimately? I also want to point out, nobody is required to cover anything. I'm not required to cover every chud comment that someone makes. I'm not required to cover every video where somebody talks about me. You know what I mean? Like, there's plenty of videos out there where people have dragged me. They've made live streams about me and talk shit about me, and I've never even responded to them. You don't have to. There's no reason to. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to respond to every single thing that is said. And the thing about Eric is, Eric said he wasn't going to do this stuff anymore. If you remember a couple years ago, Eric July said, I'm not going to get involved with the back and forth anymore. He made several videos about it. And for the most part, he has ignored almost all criticism. But the one thing you have to know about Eric July is he's not going to pass up the opportunity to advertise his dog shit comic books. He's not going to pass up the opportunity to do that. And so if he sees even a second where he can capitalize on some drama that's going to help sell his merch, he's going to do it. He's going to do it. And so this person here, Shine, thought, I've got the perfect thing for Eric July to get in the middle of. And that is Rob saying he's not going to cover the Ripaverse. Rob doesn't cover a lot of indie comics. As far as I know, the time that I watch Rob, unless something has changed, he's a big Marvel and DC person. And then sometimes he'll cover like a few of the side projects that they do or some of the subsidiary brands that they have. But for the most part, he's pretty much a mainstream guy. He doesn't cover indie stuff. So the fact that he's not going to cover the Rippaverse isn't a big shock because that's not what he does. That's not the market for him. So let's see what the follow-up to this was. All right. So here was Eric July's response to all of that. The title of the video is, I'm not even mad at Comics Explained. That's really interesting. Why did you tag Rob? Why did you tag him? You talk a lot about people in general. You don't usually tag them. But you tagged Rob here. That's the important distinction I need you guys to understand. This was a moment for Eric to make money and generate sales off of the controversy of Rob saying that he's just not going to cover the Rippaverse. So before we even get into what Eric says in this video, he tagged Rob in the title. So he's using that to piggyback off of the drama and bring attention to him. Is Eric going to play the victim in all of this? Even though there's no harm has been done? Is he going to turn it into a victimization of him and his company? Is that what he's going to do? Let's watch the video and see how he moves to this one where he says, I'm not even mad at Comics Explained. Because a lot of people are saying that this is him, basically not attacking Rob. But you have to understand, when it comes to stuff here on YouTube, it's not always just the way things look. It's what they actually are. And when you tag someone in a video like this and you're capitalizing off of the drama, you're not leaving them alone. You're not giving them a high five and saying, hey, I'm cool with this. There's something else going on here. So let's watch and see what he has to say.
So there are posts going around saying that Comics Explained stated explicitly that he's not going to cover the Rippaverse. And if you don't know who that is, he's one of the biggest comic book YouTubers. Now, I want to start by saying this. Nobody is obligated to cover the Rippaverse.
Okay, end of video. We're done, right? I love it when I watch these videos and within the first 30 seconds, they say everything that needs to be said. No one is obligated to cover the Rippaverse. End of discussion. You could have put this up on social media. You could have put this on Twitter. You could have made it a short. You could have done us all a favor and made it a short, right? No one is obligated to cover the Rippaverse. End of story. But that's not where it ends. Let's continue.
Oddly enough, I sort of defended him when a different YouTuber was upset at him for not covering the comics that he wanted him to.
Oh, oddly enough. So now that's Eric establishing I had his back. I scratched his back. When someone else was coming after him for one reason or another, I had his back. So that's odd to Eric. Oddly enough, it's odd to Eric that he did that, but then Rob chooses not to cover the Rippaverse. That's strange. That's funny to Eric. Why would he not want to cover my comics? When Blurred was calling Rob out for his social media behavior, I had his back. So he should surely cover the Rippaverse, right? That should be at the top of his list. That's not how it works.
Because to me, one of the cringiest things on the internet is individual creators trying to dictate what others should do with their platforms. Now, anytime that I've mentioned folks not covering the Rippaverse, it's really to just prove a point. And this proves that point.
Oh, so you're using Rob as an example. All right. So let's make sure we have all this in our minds as we go in here. Eric, oddly enough, defended Rob against Blurred. So it's strange to him that Rob is now choosing not to cover the Rippaverse, even though no one's obligated to cover the Rippaverse. But when they don't, Eric is going to use them as an example of the kind of stuff that he has to deal with personally and what the Rippaverse has to deal with on YouTube. So if you choose within your own right to not cover his comic books, he is going to use you as an example to further the success and the sales of his merch. Here we go.
Look, guys, this is just how the Rippaverse is handled by the broader comic book space with exclusion. But I do want to be clear about something. Most people in this space have no idea what my actual positions are. They probably know that I'm not a leftist, and they probably know that I'm cordial with creators that they don't like.
Okay, so again, what does that have to do with Rob choosing not to cover the Rippaverse? What does that have to do with that? Did Rob say he's not going to cover the Rippaverse because he thinks you're not a leftist? He got in trouble for following Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic. That was what you were defending him against. So if he did think you were someone who's not a leftist, it does stand to reason that he probably would cover your comics if he ideologically believed that you were part of that group. If he thought that was what you co-signed with, he would have followed you. He would have covered your comic books. Secondly, it is not on Rob to go back and watch 10 million hours of you playing hopscotch on different podcasts to explain your position on your politics and culture. Who does this? I thought we were supposed to separate art from the artist. I thought that was part of the Rippaverse thing, was that you don't have to look at somebody's political leanings or social leanings in order for you to enjoy those comics. But now you're saying that it's, at least you're insinuating, because Eric loves to play this game. I never said that. You didn't say it, but you're insinuating here that Rob didn't cover your comic books because he had a preconceived notion of what your political leanings are? And he didn't want to follow a million videos jumping around, hopscotching through videos and live streams to find out what your position is? Literally, the clip that we watched, it was a 6-second clip. Only 3 seconds of it mattered. And all Rob says was, I'm not going to cover the Rippaverse. That's not going to happen. He didn't say anything about Eric July in that clip. He didn't say anything about Eric July's political beliefs. He didn't say anything about why he's not going to cover the Rippaverse. None of that was there. So this is a crash out. This is him upset that one of the largest comic book YouTubers in the world made a comment about the Rippaverse that probably would have gone unnoticed, but now we have the Streisand effect, where somebody, Shine Comics, clipped it out, put it out there for people, and now it's drawing attention to Eric and all of the negativity around Eric's brand. And now he's coping with it.
They might remember that back when I was like primarily doing the YouTube thing, I would on occasion.
You're still a YouTuber. You're still a YouTuber. Like, you keep saying you're not, but you make videos, multiple videos a week, bro. I have another job and I have other things I do outside of YouTube. I'm still a YouTuber. I still make YouTube content. Just because it's not your primary source of income doesn't mean it's not something you are. You keep trying to it's like you're ashamed of being a YouTuber. It's like you don't want to be in this space. It's like you look down on people that do this for a living. You associate with people that do this for a living. You associate with Nerdrotic. You associate with Critical Drinker. You associate with Geeks and Gamers. These people do this for a living. You seem to think there's something wrong with being a YouTuber. You make this comment when I was a YouTuber previously. I'm no longer primarily a YouTuber. I'm not primarily a commentary guy or whatever. You keep doing this as if you see something wrong with it. You don't need a disclaimer for that. Why is that disclaimer even important? You do make sales of your merch through your YouTube audience. There's nothing to be ashamed of in that, except for the fact that you don't want to see yourself as an indie creator like the rest of the guys out here. You don't want to be associated with that. That's the reason why.
Point to like some of the social messaging in modern comics or call out tokenization. Now, somehow they skipped over all of those positive reviews.
You don't know what tokenization is. You've got a really warped personal definition of tokenization that doesn't make sense. But let's continue.
But that's it. Those are my great sins. And I wasn't out there.
Oh, no. Those are not your great sins, Eric. You made video after video after video attacking women, attacking gay people, attacking trans people, attacking people on the left, regardless if you're center left or you're a full-blown leftist. You've made video after video after video after video after that. There's no comparison versus positive videos versus the ones where you've been critical. And the fact that you are using this this is gonna, I have to explain this because it's an abstract thought, but if these guys don't see their content as negative content, if they don't believe their criticisms, their call outs, their reviews, whatever, if they don't believe they're negative, then why is it they understand the difference between negative and positives? Why is it that they know that the videos where they're being critical are the ones that are perceived bad, and the ones where they're not being so hateful are the ones perceived as good? How do they know the difference in that? Because people know the difference between good and bad, even these guys. Because if they truly believed that their criticisms were in good faith and it wasn't overly negative, they would not need to make a distinction between those two things because they don't see them as bad. It's like when you have a villain in a movie or TV show, like Thanos. Thanos doesn't see himself as a villain regardless of what he's doing because he knows that what he's doing in his mind is right. He knows what he's doing is correct. He gets it in his head. So he can't understand the other position because he thinks he's doing the right thing and he sees what they're doing as bad. Like all the heroes that were trying to stop him, they're his enemies. They are the antagonists in his story. He is the main character. He's the lead character. If Eric July and all these guys really truly believe that what they're doing is for the betterment of society, they would know that those things are not bad in their eyes, and therefore they would not understand the position of why they're bad. But these guys constantly love to point out, even the people in my comment section love to point out that, oh, well, they talk positively about stuff sometimes. What difference does that make? Unless you know for a fact that their positive videos are ones they're doing in reality in good faith, and their negative videos are facetious and sarcastic and hate-filled. How would you know that? How would you know unless you understood the difference between good and bad, which is the big issue I have. If you believed in what you believed in, stand on it 100%. There's a few content creators on here, some of them that allegedly beat their wives, that do a really good job of making it seem like they stand behind the content they're making and they don't see the issue with it. If you truly believed what you were saying, you would not go, well, actually, I do good reviews once in a while. I do reviews where I'm not shitting on stuff once in a while. Well, you wouldn't see it as shitting on stuff, regardless of what the review was, if you truly believed in what you're saying. So this is Eric telling on himself. He's making it very clear here that he knows that the vast majority of content that he's made is bad, which is why he didn't bring up the vast majority of it. He goes, well, I talk positively about stuff, but they ignore that. So you're saying that when you talk positively, you recognize that that is not the same as the hate content you make? Wow, shocker, something we've been saying for a very long time.
Being extreme, I was a comic book fan who had opinions about comic books. But let's be honest, Comics Explained has covered books by creators who are politically outspoken. Vida Allah, for example, isn't exactly apolitical.
Okay, so you're admitting here that he has covered comic books from people that are politically polarizing. Earlier in this video, you made it seem like he wasn't covering your content because he didn't understand what your politics are. But here you're like, he has covered people that have kind of dicey politics. Okay.
He's had no problem covering her, or rather her books. And to be fair to him, he's primarily covered the mainstream, so you can't really expect him to cover the Rippaverse, as that would be slightly a pivot. Now,
it would be beneath him. He doesn't cover the Rippaverse because it would be beneath him. That's the correct terminology. He doesn't see the Rippaverse as an important cultural comic book company. You're not moving the needle. When you have someone as large as Comics Explained who says, I'm not going to cover these comics, that means you're insignificant. You're insignificant. Your comic books are just around as merch for your YouTube channel. That's it. The Rippaverse isn't doing anything. I mean, no one's talking about it except for the people that follow you on social media. That's it. Your YouTube fans. Why would he read a comic book that is essentially derivative material? Why would he read Temu Superman and Sheen Wonder Woman? Why would you do that? Your stories aren't different or unique or even exciting. So why would he break the lore down for a universe where the lore doesn't make sense? You have characters that don't even have the same fidelity between comic books, and you've only made 3 of them for most of these characters. What are we doing? Why would he cover that? Are there people out there wondering, oh my God, I wonder what Brian Soleri's story is? Oh my gosh, he's so amazing. No, nobody's doing that. No real person is doing that, man. Nobody. Except for the sycophants that follow you around. And even they're falling off. We haven't looked at your channel in a while, and I might do it while we're sitting here. You have been bleeding subscribers for 2 years. And that's not hyperbole. Literally, you're one of the people in that space who has been losing subs. You're not gaining them. You're actively losing them. It's crazy. Bro, come on. Can we be serious? This is not serious. Is this really serious?
Be respectful, because I genuinely don't think this is about one single person. This is about a culture where acknowledging the Rippaverse is treated as a risk, where giving us a fair shake could get you attacked by the very audience that you cultivated. And
he just doesn't care. There's another option there. He doesn't give a fuck. That's the other option. You're playing a victim here. Remember when they like to call Millie Alcock a victim and Rachel Zegler a victim? This is you playing a victim. You're pretending that you have been victimized. You can't admit that maybe people just don't like your comic books. It's really that simple. You could be like, maybe some people don't fuck with the Rippaverse. It's not always about people getting attacked. There's no lack of people who speak out about the Rippaverse. Let's be serious. How many people on social media talk about the Rippaverse negatively? There's just as many, if not more, talking negatively about the Rippaverse as there is people that are buying the shit. There's an entire community built around the Rippaverse being bad comic books. So maybe he just doesn't want to talk about bad comic books, man. Maybe that's what it is. Why does it always have to be some victimization shit? You're not a victim, Eric.
Understand that. I'm not mad at the individual. I'm just pointing out this system. We've sold several.
So the system is against Eric. Now it's the system. Now it's a systemic problem against the Rippaverse. Is there even enough interest in the Rippaverse for there to be a system around it? I mean, genuinely speaking. What are we doing? What are we doing? Bro, you sell comic books to the portion of the United States or the world that buys your comics is so tiny. How can there even be a system around it? A systemic issue with Rippaverse fans? Guys, really?
100,000 books across multiple titles from multiple creative teams, whether you like us or not.
So success isn't about quality, it's about sales? You love to do this. Why don't you talk about whether or not the fans like the characters? That's never brought up in your videos. It's always like, we have made X amount of money. Bro, money doesn't always equal success. There are loyalty in characters over the years that go through ups and downs financially, but people still love those characters. The fact that you only see success in your overall sales, which, let's be fair here, are still not great on individual books. Just because that's a weird metric. Your only metric is like, oh, we make X amount of money. Why don't you talk about the fandom? Why don't you go to the Rippaverse Reddit and see how much tumbleweed is in that motherfucker? Why don't you do that? Why don't you go over to the Rippaverse podcast and talk to one of the 5 people that watch that? Why don't you do that? Why did you hide your sale numbers? Like, your sales numbers are hidden now. Why did you hide them? I thought you were a transparent company. I thought the whole point of the Rippaverse was to be different and move differently than the mainstream. But now apparently you go to your website, you can't even see your sales numbers anymore. That's interesting.
We are one of, if not the biggest independent new publisher of the last 5 years. The only way they talk about us is to delegitimize us, to say that everything we produce is the worst thing ever.
Because it's subjective, man. Do you want people to like it de facto? Oh, if they say our stuff is ugly, it must just be because they're trying to delegitimize us. Bro, we don't have to sabotage your comic book brand. You're doing it yourself. You're literally doing it yourself, man. The people that aren't buying your books are not sabotaging your brand. If I choose not to buy the Rippaverse, it's not trying to like trip you up. I just don't want to spend my money on shit. Rob doesn't want to talk about shit. You're doing all of this to cover up the fact the dude just doesn't want to fuck with your comic books. And again, disclaimer, I don't really like Rob either. The victim card is being played here. If you don't see the victim card being played in this, I don't know what to tell you. Millie Alcock is a victim. Rachel Zegler is a victim. XYZ is a victim. This is playing a victim. You're pretending that people that don't want to review your comic books are trying to sabotage your comic book brand? Are you kidding me? Is this where we are in the Rippaverse? Where you have to harass people to review Rippaverse comics? Or they're an op?
Despite the fact that, again, we have varying titles from varying creators with varying styles.
Who
this
gives
is
a
also
fuck?
why I've never understood when people say,
Guess what? You can have 50 different people making something and all 50 of those things are bad. That's the reality of it. Like, you guys say the same thing about Disney. Keep in mind, no matter which director is working on which Marvel project, they will always go, but it's Disney Marvel. But it's Disney Star Wars. This is what you guys do. You take a company and you look at the top of the company and you go, everything coming out from them is approved at the top end, so it's all going to be garbage. But here you are going, we have individual titles from individual creators. Guess what? That's how the movie industry works. That's how all these things work. There's individual things from individual people under the same umbrella, but you guys don't look at it that way. So now you're saying, I don't want you to treat the Rippaverse the way I have treated everything else. The way I have gone after people like Kevin Feige, the way I've gone after people at the top at Disney, the way I've gone after people like Brie Larson, the way I've gone after people like fucking Rachel Zegler and all these other people in the industry. I don't want you to do that to me. We move differently in the Rippaverse, meaning we want a double standard. We want you to treat everything we do as an individual project, but not look at the top end. That's what you're asking for. And people are rejecting it. They're rejecting it because you have asked for this. The community that you guys have raised, the community of people that have followed you, only follow, or you lead by example. They're only looking at what you're doing. That's it. So when you tell them that all of the damage that comes with these things start at the top, then that's the way they view everything. And Eric, you are the top of the Rippaverse. You are the lead of the Rippaverse. So everything that comes out from your company leads back to you. And that is where you and Az and Ryan Kennel and Geeks and Gamers, Nerdrotic, blah, 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 you have all told people that the buck stops at the top. They're the ones that make the decisions, and they're the ones that actually take charge. Like, even now, you're doing it with Supergirl. You're saying it's James Gunn's Supergirl. Even though it's a different person Greg Gillespie is the director. Has nothing to do with James Gunn didn't write it. He didn't direct it. Has nothing to do with him in that way. But you guys are calling it James Gunn's Supergirl. But now we're supposed to step back and go, you know what? Even though Eric July didn't make this comic, we should probably just look at the individual people on the creative team and make our decision based on that. Why don't you guys extend that gratitude, to that grace to everybody else that you talk about?
Things like, well, the Rippaverse is irrelevant because certain corners of the internet don't talk about us. Think about what those corners actually are. What, Reddit forums that ban you for speaking positively about the Rippaverse, comic book shops that refuse to carry our books because we aren't distributed by their two major distributors, contain like social media pockets where it's taboo to even mention us because people will attack you for daring to give us a fair shot.
So now you want the help of the places that you have shit on. It doesn't get any better than this. Reddit, podcast, the mainstream, comic book shops, all the places that you guys have tried to tear down for the better part of a decade. Now you're saying, oh, boo-hoo me. No one wants to talk good about my stuff in all the spaces that I have shit on for the last decade. Wow. The lack of self-awareness is crazy. It's crazy here. So you're saying that all you want is a fair shot in these spaces that you have accused of being dishonest about everybody else's creative stuff that's come out. It's just fucking... Basically, Eric, and Bumpkin says it here. He says retailers don't want to carry his books despite the fact he says retailers are completely irrelevant. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's what I've been saying the whole time, is that he wants to be in on the spaces that he's demonized. He wants to be part of the party that he's not been invited to for years. Sad, man.
So we appreciate every single person who spreads the word about what we're building here. And we've long expected to be largely ignored and boxed out by the mainstream. So,
okay, so why do you care then? If you expected to be ignored, why are you crying about Rob not talking about your comic books? How many videos has Eric made when somebody goes, I don't want to talk about the Rippaverse? Oh, zero. Except for this one. And then he tags Rob in it. As I said earlier, he did that because he wanted to draw attention to this.
This isn't new. This isn't at all surprising. If anything, it's confirming what we've said all along, that the mainstream isn't necessarily a meritocracy. It's a club. And
So Rob is part of the mainstream now? This individual, independent YouTube creator that never, ever talks about access media. You don't see him bragging about early access to movies. None of that. Now Rob is the mainstream and is confirming to Eric that because Rob doesn't want to review the Rippaverse, that the mainstream has an issue with the Rippaverse. Okay. All right.
we're never going to be invited in. And that's why we built our own thing in the first place.
Here, 7 of 9 says breathe, Eric. I had to take a moment to breathe. Thank you for doing that. Y'all don't understand. In 4 years, I've never heard Eric go this hard on Eric's baby. He usually just talks about Eric's bad behavior, but now he's going to detail. It's brutal. Yeah, I'm just tired of it, man. I'm tired of the victim narrative from these guys, the double standard. Crudy says the projection is exhausting. Yeah. Rob wants views too, Eric. That's why Rippaverse isn't his thumbnail and Comics Explain is in yours.